Hi interns. In this module, we are going to talk about all things leadership and project management. As you recall, the concentration of this internship program is leadership and project management. And some of you may wonder, well, how does this incorporate into the rotations? What will I be doing for the concentration? And this module will answer those questions. On page 19 of your manual, you will see it talks about the concentration, leadership and project management, and has 3 specific concentrations for our program. All internships across the U.S. have all the other competencies, and then we get to pick and develop competencies specific to our program. So this is the 3 that we have. They all are based around you leading a project. And so when we look at this, you design the activities of a project, you demonstrate leadership through the project, and you evaluate your efforts after the project. So there are a couple activities that we need to do before you dig into that project. One of those is to allow you to reflect on your own management and leadership skills as they are right now, and to think about how you might develop those skills throughout this year of rotations. So to do that, your ReggieNet internship site will have a thread specific for posting a leadership podcast. This leadership podcast, we want you to seek out. There are millions of podcasts on leadership. And Caitlin and I could each pick one out, and we would probably pick a different one out. And I would get something different out of it. Caitlin would get something else. And so what we want to do is to allow you to listen to a podcast that might be relative to something about leadership and project management that interests you. So this way you can be more interested in listening to the podcast and it can benefit you more. All right. So number 1, we'd like you to find a podcast related to leadership, management, project management, listen to it, and then post a link to the podcast in the internship ReggieNet site. After you post that link, or I should say along with posting the link, I'd like to give a short summary / reflection on it. I mean, really a paragraph is plenty, but enough for you to show what you got out of listening to that podcast. After students post these podcast links, we would like you to pick one other podcast and listen to that. And through the same thread, you can simply reply to that student's post and agree or disagree with what they may have written as a reflection to that podcast. This we would like you to have done by October 1st. All right. Again, pick a podcast, listen to it, write the summary, post it, and listen to someone else's with a short response back to them. Or I should say a thoughtful response back to that student on ReggieNet. As you are completing your rotations, another element of leadership and project management that will be pulled along throughout the rotations is a reflection after each rotation site as far as what you learned about leadership and project management from your preceptor. This will also be posted in ReggieNet, and it'll allow your leadership skills to develop. We can learn so much by watching others. I'm hopeful in most cases it's learning positive things, but you also can learn things that you would think, you know what, I don't think I would handle the situation like that. I've learned that kind of backfired on my preceptor, so I would think about doing something else if that situation arises. So again, we can learn so much, and I want you to take away those skills, the leadership elements, by observing your preceptor in the everyday actions of their leadership. So that summary, again, is just a reflection of what you learned from your preceptor in regards to leadership and project management, and that will be done on ReggieNet. All of these things come together to build your leadership skills and really that foundation of leadership. And now it's your time to put that into action. You get to do so by leading a project. One of the other things we would like you to complete by October 1st is a leadership contract. Caitlin will send this out in a Word document format so you can type in all of this spaces, but it allows you to propose what leadership project you would like to complete. I have a series of examples to show you because you might be thinking, well, what do you mean by a leadership project? How big are we talking? Altogether, your leadership and project management tasks equate to 80 hours of supervised practice. So we have that within our internship program. Let's keep in mind you're listening and posting about podcasts. You're reflecting on your preceptor's style after each rotation, and then reflecting after your big project. Those items together equate to 10 hours. So what you have left is 70 hours to gain from your project or for volunteering in the community with nutrition events. So let's talk about these projects for your leadership project. Some examples as I think back to the past years of interns and what they have done. I've had students help out at a farmer's market with a very specific event for the farmer's market. Specifically, this was gleaning the leftover produce and donating it to a site afterwards. So every farmer's market, they were there for a couple hours and doing this. I had one student very passionate about working with preschoolers, and so she developed a 6-week curriculum on nutrition education for preschoolers and then went into a preschool, delivered the curriculum as well. As we look at that project and we think about your 70 hours, it's not just executing the talk or the presentation or whatever it might be, but it is all the meetings leading up to it, the research of that, and the delivery of it as well. Whereas in your rotations, you only get credit for the supervised practice time where you are with your preceptor 8 to 4:30 in the day. You might have homework, but the homework from a rotation does not count as supervised practice. With your leadership project, since it is you leading a project, every hour counts, okay? And it's up to you to keep track of that. I will also be providing a leadership kind of log, an hourly log for you, so you can complete and fill out and keep track of every hour or chunks of hours that you do for your leadership hours. So another project, we talked about preschool, farmer's market, if there's a community garden in your area, and you can be actively involved in that and doing a project. There's going to be a difference between volunteering and doing a project. So maybe with the community garden, it's hosting a large harvest party. And so you're going to be the contact for that and take charge of it. Food banks, a great place to volunteer, but also is there a project you can take on? I had one student create a checklist and go into food pantries that the food bank was serving and doing checklists at all of the different food facilities where people were getting food. So again, taking on that project. Cooking classes. Is there a series of cooking classes that you could do maybe at a fitness center, a WIC clinic, a Head Start facility? I had one student, there was a need in town for Wednesday night meals at a church, and the student was involved in charge of planning the menu, doing the grocery shopping, doing the meal prep every Wednesday for a semester. You can see that those hours added up quickly when all of the planning and execution hours were added up. Another couple students have worked with different facilities that needed videos of maybe how to cut an onion. So the student worked on creating that video of how to cook an onion. Or we want to make cooking classes online. And a facility asked students, how could you help with this? And so a student took that on as a leadership project. So we talk about 70 hours then that you need to get from a leadership project and volunteering. Some leadership projects that I mentioned are going to be maybe 15 hours. So you can see you will have a lot more hours then to volunteer. Where some of these projects, like the church Wednesday night meals, I know the student got a lot, if not all, close to all, of the required hours just by doing that project. So it's going to vary student to student on how you obtain these 70 hours. But if you think of them as volunteer hours, and then you need that one project which you can call your own. Okay, so this leadership project allows you to provide us information on your project. We can read through it and talk some logistics with you. Do we think this is a good project? Is this going to work? Do you think you should tweak it a certain way? So we'll give you some valuable feedback on that. Otherwise, if you think about wherever you're located, think about the needs in your community. Maybe one of your first rotation sites, you might want to talk to a preceptor. Is there a project you could do here? Another thing I want you to keep in mind is you can't double dip hours. So if you're going with your preceptor to a health fair and helping at that booth and counting it for community hours, you can't count that for leadership project volunteer hours, okay? Because that's already been counted in your supervised practice total. And if you have any questions or clarifications on that, let us know. All right, so we have the podcast project that you're going to be working on where you get to continue to develop your own leadership and what your skills are, where you might want to continue to work on this year. We have those reflections about preceptors after a rotation site, which I think are so valuable for students. And then we have you coming up with your own project and submitting this contract by October 1st. Now you might be thinking, when is all of this due? I'm a little overwhelmed. You have until graduation, okay? So I do want to say that. I think as we look at your 402 class, there will be a module in 402 that'll be due the end of April. So if you think end of April you need to get this done, don't put it off. But it is also something that maybe there's a really great project in the spring. Wait for that. Don't just do something that you're not passionate about now. But we really want you to be able to find your passion for nutrition and really be able to give back to the community as well. So there will be a module through 402. And in that module, that is where you are going to submit this reflection of your project. That is where you are going to show us the project that you did. So if you do a cooking class, have somebody take pictures. If you're giving presentations, have someone take pictures of you doing it. If you create a great, bulletin board as part of an education at a food bank, take pictures of it. Because that, number one, is going to be really great for your portfolio when you graduate and are looking for jobs. And number two, really great things to submit with that module in 402 showing us what you did for your leadership project. I know that was a lot of information. You have this video. If you ever want to go back and listen to it, I encourage you to do so because this is something that's going to last the whole length of your rotations. And how you fit in the hours, it's really up to you. And, we would love to hear about any feedback you have as you go. If you're helping out with something, send us some pictures. We have Instagram, Facebook, and we would love to get those things out on social media as well to show what you are doing out in the community. Always great things come out of these leadership projects, so I'm anxious to hear what your projects are and what you've learned throughout the process. Again, let us know if you have questions.